am anonymous. Not a single face, not a single voice, not a political party, not a brand you can cancel. We are a decentralized idea. We watch systems of power. We archive what others want erased. We speak when silence becomes complicity. And tonight we're here because the truth keeps leaking out no matter how hard some people try to bury it. Donald Trump is on the list. Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear isn't rumor. It isn't internet gossip, and it isn't some late-night conspiracy thread. This is built from court documents, sworn testimony, FBI interviews, investigative journalism, and statements from members of Congress who have actually seen the unredacted Epstein files. When you line it all up, the story Donald Trump has been selling for years collapses completely. It starts with bombshell documents buried deep in the Epstein case files. Documents that prove two things beyond reasonable doubt. First, Donald Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes while they were happening. Not later, not vaguely. He knew. Second, Trump's story about how he and Epstein supposedly broke up and went their separate ways is a total fabrication. A PR fairy tale designed to protect himself once Epstein became radioactive. One of the most critical documents ever released is part of a civil lawsuit filed in Palm Beach County, Florida, by an unidentified Epstein victim. Her identity is protected. She's listed as Jane Doe, but her words are on the record under oath. This isn't speculation. This is testimony. In that document, the victim answers a series of questions about who knew she was being abused, who knew what Epstein was doing to underage girls, and who had knowledge of the operation surrounding him. You can read it yourself. Document number EFTA 0072592. No filters, no commentary, just the raw text. The question is simple. List the names of all persons believed or known by you, your agents, or your attorneys to have knowledge concerning the issues in this lawsuit. In other words, who knew? And the list is horrifying. We're talking about billionaires, financiers, socialites, power brokers, people whose names appear on buildings and donor lists, people tied to Epstein's money, his travel, his access to girls. Jean-Luc Brunel, Wexner, Mark Epstein, all identified as knowing about Epstein's finances and his sexual interest in minor girls. And then right there on the page is Donald Trump. Not implied, not hinted, explicitly named. The victim states that Donald Trump had knowledge of the finances surrounding Epstein. That means Trump wasn't just some guy who went to a party once. According to this victim, he knew what Epstein was into. He knew what was happening, and he did nothing. This document reads like the closest thing we may ever get to a real client and enabler list. Not a fantasy list, not internet speculation. A list created through litigation, sworn testimony, and legal discovery. And Trump is on it. The names keep going. David Copperfield, Ghislaine Maxwell, Leon Black, Michael Ryder, a cluster of powerful men in Palm Beach and New York who all lived in the same social orbit. They knew when Epstein flew girls in. They knew when he hosted. They knew what his reputation was, and most of them stayed silent. That silence matters. Trump has spent years claiming he barely knew Epstein, that he distanced himself early, that he had some kind of moral awakening, but that image doesn't survive contact with the documents. And then there's the reporting from Julie K. Brown. If you don't know her name, you should. She's the journalist whose reporting helped reopen the Epstein case after it was buried by prosecutors. She didn't speculate. She dug. She sourced. She documented. Her reporting confirmed something devastating for Trump. In 2006, Trump personally called the Palm Beach police chief, Michael Ryder. This isn't hearsay. This comes from an FBI interview with Ryder himself. Document number EFTA 01249718. In that interview, Ryder recounts Trump telling him that Epstein's behavior with teenage girls was widely known in both New York and Palm Beach. Widely known. Trump didn't say he was shocked. He didn't say he had just found out. He said everyone knew. Trump told Ryder that Epstein was disgusting. He said Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's operative. He called her evil. He urged investigators to focus on her. He claimed that at one point he saw Epstein around teenagers and left because it made him uncomfortable. Here's the key detail Trump doesn't want you to focus on. He made this call after learning an investigation had already begun. Trump did not go to police when girls were being abused. He did not alert authorities when he supposedly knew Epstein was dangerous. He waited until law enforcement was already moving. That's not whistleblowing. That's self-preservation. And notice the contradiction. In 2006, Trump calls Maxwell evil. In 2019, when Maxwell is arrested and facing charges for trafficking minors, Trump stands in front of cameras and says, "I wish her well." Same woman, same crimes. Two very different public faces. That's not an accident. That's damage control. Then there's the Mar-a-Lago lie. Trump loves telling this story, that he kicked Epstein out of his club, that he banned him, that he cut ties because Epstein was creepy. It's a clean story. Simple, morally flattering. It's also false. Representative Jamie Raskin reviewed unredacted Epstein files at the Department of Justice. Members of Congress are legally allowed to do this, and Raskin publicly stated that he saw a document that directly contradicts Trump's claim. It was an email from Epstein to Maxwell forwarding a message from Epstein's lawyers. Those lawyers summarized conversations between Epstein's legal team and Trump's lawyers during the 2009 investigation. In that summary, Trump is quoted as saying Epstein was never kicked out of Mar-a-Lago, was never asked to leave, and was simply a guest. That portion of the document was redacted from public release for no clear reason.
The Department of Justice has not sent forth its so-called privilege log, so it's not explained yet why there might be certain redactions that have been made. I saw one document which was an email that was sent by Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, which was the forward of an email that he had received from some of his lawyers giving an account of a conversation between Epstein lawyers and Trump lawyers and others about what had taken place during that 2009 period. It was during the period of the 2009 investigation. And Epstein's lawyers synopsized and quoted Trump as saying that that Jeffrey Epstein was not a member of his club at Mar-a-Lago, but he was a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and he had never been asked to leave. And that was redacted for some indeterminate, inscrutable reason. I know it seems to be at odds with some things that President Trump has been saying recently about how he had kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club or asked him to leave, and this was at least one report that appears to contradict.
Let that sink in. Trump's own words, relayed by Epstein's lawyers, directly contradict the story he's told the public for years. No ban, no dramatic fallout, no moral stand. This matters because Trump's entire defense rests on that story. Remove it, and what's left is a man who socialized with Epstein, knew his reputation, knew what he was doing, and only spoke up when the investigation became unavoidable. And it doesn't stop there. Trump's name appears in Epstein's social world repeatedly. Photos, flight manifests tied to mutual associates, party footage, statements from people who were there. Trump and Epstein weren't strangers. They weren't casual acquaintances. They moved in the same elite circles for years. There's video of Trump laughing and partying with Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. There are quotes from Trump himself praising Epstein, calling him a terrific guy who liked women on the younger side. That quote alone should have ended the conversation years ago. And yet when Epstein was arrested again in 2019, Trump and his allies suddenly rewrote history. Suddenly Trump barely knew him. Suddenly he was disgusted by him. Suddenly he was the hero who kicked him out. The documents say otherwise. And remember, this Epstein didn't operate in the shadows. He operated in plain sight, protected by wealth, power, and access. People knew. They joked about it. They whispered about it. They avoided saying it out loud because saying it out loud would have consequences. Trump was part of that world. The pattern is consistent. Knowledge without action. Silence until exposure. Then denial. Then rewriting history. This isn't about partisan politics. This isn't about left versus right. Epstein didn't traffic girls for ideology. He trafficked them for powerful men who thought they were untouchable. And the reason this story keeps resurfacing is because too many people want it to disappear. They want you distracted. They want you arguing about everything except this. But here's the reality. A victim named Donald Trump. An FBI interview records his own admissions. Congressional review contradicts his public statements. Journalists confirm the timeline. This isn't one piece of evidence. It's a network of corroboration. And that's why this scares them. Because once you accept that Trump knew, didn't act, and lied afterward, you have to ask harder questions. How many others did the same? How many protected themselves instead of children? How many are still walking free because people stopped paying attention? Anonymous exists for moments like this, not to tell you what to think, but to make sure the information doesn't vanish, to make sure the receipts stay public, to make sure power doesn't get the final edit. So don't take this and shrug. Read the documents, share the reporting, talk about it, archive it, question the narratives you're handed. We are anonymous, we are watching, and we don't forget.